Okay, Ms. Morgan, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you will please call roll.
Chairman Langley,
Here.
Vice Chair Price,
Here.
Mr. Barrett,
Here.
Ms. Ms. Davis, Ms. Kirkpatrick, and Mr. Smith.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Our first order of business, we have some minutes that need to be approved from February 4th and February 25th. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
I move they are approved as presented.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the minutes are approved. Next, we'll move into our new business first. There is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for 403 South Washington Street, James and Jackie Brookins, the petitioners. If you'll come on up and then sign in with Ms. Morgan. And then whoever is elected to do the talking can come on up here. Hello. We are glad to see you guys here today. If you will just give us a rundown of what you would like, what you're asking for, and then we will have Mr. Duke to come up and give us a staff report, and we'll go from there.
It's time to replace our roof. It's a big investment. After a lot of research and even canvassing the neighborhood to see what type of roofs are out there on historic homes, we decided that, for our money, that the steel roofing would be a good investment. We wanted to make sure that it was acceptable to the historic committee.
Okay, and make sure it will last. Huh? Your roof will last. Yes, absolutely.
They usually come with like 40 and 50-year guarantees compared to the 20 or 25
Right.
on regular shingles. So.
Okay. If you'll have a seat but stay close, Mr. Duke will give a staff report, and then we'll have the opportunity to ask you any questions.
Good afternoon. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on 403 South Washington because you can see from the staff report this is the fourth time the Brookins have been before us or before you to ask for modifications to the house, and all of those previous ones have been approved. Request to modify the roof material is pretty much standard. Roofs are covered in page 31 of your guidelines. Basically says that the historic roof shape should be maintained, which there's nothing in their proposal that alters the roof shape. Materials can be basically whatever this board approves based on the guidelines. The only thing y'all ask is that they come before you if they want to make a materials change, and that's the case here. You're going from asphalt shingles to a metal roof. And quickly, my only recommendation is that their application contains a good number of options of styles and colors. As y'all have really looked at before, it's easier if y'all get the applicant to settle on one and y'all approve that. That way everybody is on the same page, so to speak. Instead of just saying metal roof, you might get something that you didn't intend.
Okay, are there any questions? Hold up, Mr. Duke. Are there any questions for Mr. Duke at this time? All right. Okay, if you'll come on up, and the commissioners will have the opportunity to ask you any questions regarding this. Go ahead, Greg.
How did you know?
You pressed your button.
I did wonder what color y'all had planned on.
Leaning toward there's several in the neighborhood that have like it's called Galvalume. It's sort of a whitish, a high white color. That's what we're leaning toward.
I would say we're leaning toward a stock color too, that because of the cost. We wouldn't want any custom colors or anything like that. But we're open to recommendations even.
What color Is the roof brown now?
I think it's brown.
Yeah, it's sort of a brownish color, tan, light tan. Which, I don't know if I have a color sample like that in there.
Yeah, I thought that was it. I couldn't see the whole roof.
Hard to tell with all the trees.
Right.
And there's a lot of layers of roofing on there too. So, I mean, there's a rainbow of shingles on the house right now.
Well, what's the recommendation that keep to the same color?
Mr. Barrett, did you have a question?
Not yet.
Okay. Your light is on. That's why I was asking. Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Is this microphone is not working?
My light's on.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Lily.
I have a question. There's a lot of different styles of metal roofs, like Joel had explained. Is this a controlled screws or standard seam?
It's, most of them are standard seam, is what I've been looking at, so.
Well, standard seam is a good roof versus controlled screws. Think you match it.
Okay. Would certainly entertain that, definitely.
I think, go ahead, Kate.
Not making any changes to the roof lines, just replacing what's there.
Just replacing what's there.
I think what Mr. Duke was alluding to earlier is that before we do approve this request, that we know for certain what color you're going to choose. We've kind of ran into this issue with someone else in the downtown area. They were going to do one of 8 different colors. And so we really do need to narrow that down so we know exactly what we are approving. Not to put you on the spot for that, but
I wish he brought his cell phone so we could call the contractor. We're not really sure which ones are considered standard colors.
I can find out. We may have to table this for another month if we have to come back.
Well, the roof is leaking, so I don't want to table it too long. So,
Mr. Duke, do you have any recommendations on how to handle this? If there's, one of 2 colors that we approve?
Would copper or something like that?
Y'all kind of landed on basic, either a metal appearance. I think you said galvalume, which would be
Yeah.
kind of the silvery,
Silvery whitish color, right?
which is kind of traditional on a metal roof, or something like a black, which that's almost too much. The grays are more in line with a kind of a historical appearance. I think y'all have had some objection to
Yeah.
the stark changes to the colors, such as the one shown here.
that wasn't our
But,
choice.
And I didn't think so. But the grays or the metals, included in y'all's packet is the picture from the historic record from the Library of Congress, and it shows that this house had a metal roof. It actually was metal shingles, individual shingles. They're just this way.
The last picture.
Last couple of pictures. I've probably seen this.
Yeah, I see them.
Is that green or
In
what?
fact, you probably will find this roof underneath there somewhere.
It's under there now. You can go into the attic and see it's on the bottom side.
Same thing's on the gin shop. So a metal roof is certainly acceptable, and this, of course, was kind of a shiny metal roof. This is what's shown here. It's not in real high detail. It's similar to what's on the 1848 building, 1852 building at the gin shop. So this was a very common roofing material. So
What is this?
that's a product sample of what they're doing. So something along those lines. I think if you wanted to give them a kind of a range, you find that would be it would complement the house, complement the district. And that way,
So you're saying something more in line of the galvanized, the gray, the lighter gray, the brushed. Okay.
That's correct. That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay. Is that something that you guys could agree to? Okay. Any questions? Are we good with that?
Did we decide what style?
What style?
Standing seam.
Oh, standard seam. Okay.
Okay. All right, you can have a seat. Thank
It's a
you.
standing seam.
Okay, is there a motion to be made then at this time?
I'll make a motion that we grant them a certificate of appropriateness based on a standing seam metal roof, galvalume color, like they said.
Okay, in that range. Is there a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and it has been approved. So thank you very much, and good luck. Okay, our next order is Mr. Matt Holscher. Certificate of appropriateness for alterations and repairs at 246 Wetumpka Street. Thank you for coming today, Matt. Good to see
Sure.
you.
I have two things on the docket, I guess. And one was to replace the front door of our house. And our front of our house is sagging due to some rotten beams underneath. And over the last, I'd say, 20-something years, the tenants have trimmed this side, and then this side, and this side. And so once I repair those beams, there's going to be, I measured it and put a picture in here or in the write-up, but there's 2.5 inches of difference between the right-hand side of the door and the left-hand side of the door. So I don't think there's any repairing it. Right now we have about an inch of foam on the top and bottom, and we use the side doors. I'd like to replace it with a door that looks identical from inside the house. And in my shop we had about 12 that were left on the property when we bought the house, and I have 3 that are that size or a little bigger that can be trimmed to fit. I would like possibly change the color. We're currently stripping all the doors in our house and refinishing them just clear with the heart pine look, and I'd like to do that on the front door if the door itself does not have enough, doesn't have too many flaws, because some of them have gouges that have been bondoed over and stuff. If it's unfinishable, then I'll paint it back black to match the current door. So that was one of my projects. The second one is my homeowner's insurance has requested or demanded that I change the skirting around the foundation of my house. Right now it's aluminum skirt around it, and they say that I fell through the loophole. It's time to catch up, and it has to be brick or masonry, or I have to find a new insurance. That was on our list to do eventually, but now it's to be done sooner, and we'd like to do that.
Brick or masonry?
We'd like to go with brick. Now our house was basically built in 2 pieces, about 50-something years apart. And the front of the house has piers that are one color brick. The back of the house has piers that are another color brick. And about 3 or 4 times things have been painted, and they're all different colors. And today I went to Marshall Lumber this afternoon and looked at some products they have to strip paint off, but they don't know if it'll work on that old brick and paint. I also have a sandblaster, but I don't know if it'll destroy the brick. But our goal is to put back brick with the natural brick showing. And I guess if that fails and is unmatchable, we'll end up having to paint it. But we would like to have the brick just like our neighbors have showing all the way around.
Okay, if you'll have a seat for 1 second, Matt. Mr. Duke, if you will give us a staff report, please.
Okay, let's dispense with the second item first, if we could. Given Mr. Holscher's description of what he would like to do, your regulations would basically consider that to be maintenance. So you're basically replacing a door with a door that's just like the one that's there. That's not really a material change. So you can either approve that one and just say that's it's covered under this, or you can just skip it and we'll call it maintenance. The first item, which was listed in the staff report, is removal of the aluminum skirting. That would essentially be allowed. That is consistent with other buildings, residential structures in the district. I've listed there for you the guidelines when it comes to masonry, and I've also listed one of the guidelines when it comes to paint. When it comes to paint, paint is certainly allowed where masonry has been painted previously. So if Mr. Holscher wanted to go ahead and paint the new brick just like the piers have been painted, that would be acceptable. He can certainly leave it natural, just the natural brick face, just like he would like to. But he has the option of painting and still being within your guidelines. The paint is generally a good way to blend those mismatched bricks, either different time periods, different lots. In fact, we talked a little bit about that with commercial building at the last meeting. So what Mr. Holscher is proposing to do would be within your guidelines. The only thing that's kind of missing at this point is kind of a description of exactly how that would look. But you do find examples of it throughout the district. Some of them are a lattice pattern where it's not fully blocked off. Others are completely walled off with just some ventilation. You may want to ask questions about that, but I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. All right, Mr. Holscher. Are there questions regarding, yes, Mr. Smith?
I don't really have a question except to say that this week I walked around the house and I looked at the skirting that's around the crawl space, and this material is so thin it's almost like aluminum foil. It's just really beat up, and any color brick or any type brick would be far superior to what's there now. And personally, I feel that you'll never match exactly the bricks that's on the existing piers, but I feel like as a homeowner that you're not going to let something go. You know, you'll do whatever's necessary to make it look right. Mm-hmm. And I think brick will be a large improvement of what's there now.
Thank you. Mr. Holscher, do you have an idea of what the pattern is how you're going to do the underpinnings?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to share that with us?
I would say it would be just like the lower portion of the wall, solid. Mm-hmm. We have a huge squirrel, chipmunk, and cat problem down there on Wetumpka Street. And
it's a downtown problem.
Yeah. Downtown. And
I think we can all attest to that.
There would be, currently there's vent holes you can see in the pictures, I'd say about every 12 feet. And those would be basically in the same place. And they'd just be about, the way my neighbors has is the bricks are turned on in, and there's a gap of brick, and then they put screen behind them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so they're only about openings that big with the brick in the middle.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? You were really lucky to have all of those doors left over.
I have probably a dozen doors
wow.
and 50 windows.
That's nice. That's a good problem to have. All right. Thank you, Matt. Okay. Is there a motion to be made at this time?
I would like to move, if I get the words correct, that we'll approve a certificate of appropriateness for his request to put the brick at the crawl space.
And the door as well?
And the door, well, of course, that's a maintenance item.
Is that how we're going to look at that? Okay. Okay, skip it. Okay. So there's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and it has been approved. So there you go. Thank you very much. That may mean more squirrels in our directions, huh? We should have rethought that a little better. Okay, the third request is a certificate of appropriateness for an alterations and repair at 161 West Main Street. Jules Moffitt, petitioner. Come on up, whoever's going to speak today. We don't bite, I promise.
hardship, and what it was gonna cost was approximately $2,500. I see you should all have a copy of the estimates. I've called several brick people. These are the only ones that I could get to give me an estimate, which one of them is like $15,000. That's a little bit pricey. Now, the other one, which we have kind of agreed to go, if we do this, it would be the, then this is considered an old brick. What it is they just cut the brick, and it would be this size, so it won't stick out past where it is now. What I understand, they're going to come in, seal off the area, put the hardy board. This would be just like a tile because of the width of it. I guess they call it veneer, I'm not sure. And so it basically looked like new bricks, old new bricks. This is about $8,500, I think, to do it this way. They're guaranteeing that this will stay. Trying to take the front of the bricks off and redoing them will not work. No one will ever give me an estimate for that.
Okay. Then if you'll just have a seat for just a moment, and we'll let Mr. Duke come up.
You can see there in just behind tab number 1, as requested by this board, we sent a follow-up letter to Mr. Moffitt asking for items requested in I believe, Mr. Barrett's motion at the last meeting. And you can see that we're basically looking for alternatives, cost of alternatives, also looking at the feasibility of making the proposed repairs. You also have a copy of the proposals. You have a letter from Mr. Moffitt, and you have a copy of their proposals and the cost showing. And I'm sorry I missed Ms. Duck's presentation, but I'll go ahead and tell you that, and maybe we can start the discussion here, that certainly it's worth looking at what they're proposing. I am concerned, as I was at the last meeting, about the actual structural condition of the building and whether or not what's proposed here will be an improvement and help preserve the structure, or whether or not, or whether it will do any good at all in that regard. So I think that remains a question based on what I see here. These are folks that are brick installers and that have provided proposals. They're certainly good proposals, but they're not really getting, in my opinion, at the heart of the question, which is, are we doing anything with this change to actually stop the deterioration of the original brick? It may be that it can't be stopped. It may be that the mortar is turned basically to sand and is letting go completely, and it may be necessary to do this. Of course, that brings up another question. If that is actually happening, is it proposed that this veneer be tied back into the structure? And what would that actually look like? As you step down the facade in the front, what are the transitions as you go from the original brick to this down to the storefront? What is that actually going to look like? So, and I'm bringing that up because I don't have the information presented here to understand that. So that's where we see it from a staff perspective. It may be necessary that this be the approach that's taken, something that's more like a facade. But again, I'm not sure how this facade would actually be attached to the original building. Because again, the bricks that we're talking about that are deteriorating are not, they're not a veneer, as you would see in a modern house. Or a modern building. They're part of the structure. We're talking about a wall that is this course of bricks that you can see on the outside, but then there are several between that and the interior of the building. So we just need that question answered, I would think.
Mr. Dick, I have a question. It may be in a minute. If the veneer, if this is put on there and it is not going to secure the structural problem that may be there, then what happens? That whole front wall falls? I mean, what would be the possibilities?
Well, I would think the immediate issue might be that if the veneer is not properly secured, then and you have movement going on behind that, then possibly that could fall off. And I understand the owner's concern, and this is what they're trying to address, which is a safety hazard on the public sidewalk of pieces of brick or brick falling out. And besides being a loss to the building, it's just a hazard. And I'm saying, let's make sure that we're not continuing that hazard while thinking that we're fixing something. It could be that we don't have enough information, and I think we could get to a point where we're all assured that this is going to work, maybe the only thing that's possible. But there's not much detail about how this would be really pulled off, and how that would be secured to the structure.
Would these brick companies be able to address those issues with us, or would it take a structural engineer?
My recommendation would be, because we're talking about the structure itself and the properties of the building being able to support this fix, then that would be a good place to start. An architect that has some skill in this would be another place. Mr. Smith can probably speak to who else might be qualified to address that. Now, there are some brick guys that are masons that are able to address that. In these proposals, I just don't see anything that where I recognize that they understand that we're not talking about just a face of bricks. We're talking about the bricks being the structure.
Joel and I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Patterns, are the existing brick that says now, is it just all running bond, sort of like in here, or is there any kind of different patterns? I could see this product looking really good if it's put up with some patterns in it. Mm-hmm. And I could see an old-looking brick, and if the building department here, if they furnish some engineering drawings from somebody saying, hey, this is going to work based on these drawings here, and if the city approves those drawings, then that seems like lets everybody off the hook. I can see this looking really good.
I can see it being possible. Again, I'm more concerned about not understanding what might happen to what's installed, that whether or not the building itself will support it. So certainly if something is submitted that shows that, and this board is willing to look at that as a fix. Now, the question is, would this be an acceptable fix on other brick buildings downtown? Because I'm not saying you have to allow it everywhere. That's not the way this works. Every building is kind of unique, and you want to try to address it that way. But you want to be sure the longer term effect. As far as the bond, I have not looked that closely at it, Mr. Smith, and it's a painted brick, so it's not really obvious in the photographs. Wouldn't be that hard to discover, obviously, but
you know, if the installer worked in some patterns, it really wouldn't cost any more. It'd look a lot better, but it wouldn't cost more because it's using the same quantity of brick. Yeah. And I'd recommend that, you know, if you use this product, and it's a good-looking product, that just work in some patterns, you know, like the old building facades on a lot of the old downtown buildings.
Right. Well, if you look at the building and the pictures that you have from the previous meeting, you can see that a couple of things have been done to change the storefront on this building. This is, just keep turning further into the documents you have for this meeting. You can see that there's been plywood put over what is likely a transom window or above at the top of the storefront. And then there's probably a masonry transition to the next layer of the wall. It's likely that there's some steel in that. For instance, when the Cobb building burned, right above that storefront was a very large piece of steel that carried the load for the brick wall above it. So that's probably this transition. So where we're talking about installing this brick would be here. We really would want to understand how that new brick fits in with this whole facade and the changing patterns as you go up the storefront. It's likely that no matter what went in here, you'd want to paint it because you're going to try to blend it with what's already there.
We can see some detail on some horizontal projections. There's like one at the coping at the top and one down about 3 feet.
Sure.
And maybe one down even bit lower. If they keep those same projections, personally, and if it's engineered to go up correctly and stay, I don't have a problem with it.
That might be one way to look at dealing with some of this Spalding brick. I mean, you've got, and that's really what's happening here, is you've got brick that has been painted to try to keep it from decaying, and then paint that was not replaced, and so water got in behind the paint, which then added to the deterioration. So, this brick, to fix it, is likely such that you have to go in there and cut out individual bricks, and there's probably a good, I would hesitate to even estimate the number. So the veneer might not work. We just, before this board went so far as to allow that on this first example of a building downtown, I would say you would really want to understand how that's going to work in the detail of the facade. As you mentioned the projections. Okay, will the projections still be there when that veneer is put on? That's where I see a likely issue, is that, okay, that projection is not that deep, and so is that going to go away, which would materially change the building, in my opinion. That doesn't mean we can't do it. We just need to, like I said, understand it with more than what we have in front of us at the moment.
Would not the building department be in charge of this and approve any installation?
Absolutely, but they are not. The building code is a how to do it, and really what y'all are looking at is the appearance of the building and trying to maintain that. So there's a nice fit here. If y'all are okay with it, as far as appearance wise, certainly they're going to have to improve the installation. I think it is certainly, if you wanted to go to this point and just say to the applicant, let's see basically a drawing of the building. Let's understand basically in head-on view, a profile view, how that's going to work, and what's going to be the appearance of this facade when you're finished. And I'm not asking this board to get into being a structural decision maker. That's always the building department. I think that y'all do need to keep in mind just what I said. If you're putting something up that is not going to be helping the building long term, that's the other question. Are we putting something here that's going to allow you to seal off that decay that's taking place, or are you going to continue to get water behind it, and you're going to continue with the problem that you've got now? So. Sorry, I've moved around a good bit, and I apologize for that.
But that last statement would be a structural issue. I kind of lost my purview, too. I was thinking we don't want to do something that's going to cause that whole wall to collapse, but that would be a structural thing and really would be the building commission?
It is certainly a question y'all can ask. Y'all are not going to be the final say on that. But you can, it's kind of everybody's working in the same direction on that. It's not a, nobody's going to come here and say, you can go build it today because the HPC said go forth. It's going to be a matter of, okay, y'all have said this is a good idea, then it's going to have to be taken across the street to the building official to look at. He's going to ask for a lot more as far as structural details.
If I'm looking at the, I'm looking at the estimate from Acme Brick Company here. Their list items, to me, really kind of says how they're going to prevent or the corrosion of the bricks from going any further with 6 bags of Ultraflex Lift Thin Set. That will, seems to me, that's what goes, that's what seals the cracks, seals off any further damage and corrosion, and the Hardy backer goes behind that, and the bricks come on the other side of that. Without knowing exactly how many bags of Ultraflex they would need, it seems like that would be a legitimate way to seal off any further water intrusion, because that Ultraflex is waterproof and resistant. Basically, you're flattening that surface back out, and then coming back with a thin brick set that doesn't protrude. So, but at the same time, a drawing would be nice with the detail how that's going to be applied. But I do see how they intend to do it. It seems that could be legitimate, but I'm reaching at that, guessing at what they're going to do with the Ultraflex. So this is like almost all the information we need. We're just missing the last little bit.
And I apologize. I did not hear again that the would the brick veneer be placed over the existing brick, or is that over cement board? So that's a. I guess that's what I'm getting at is how many inches of additional material are we talking about there that's being added, which would.
It's a 1/4 inch board, but the real thing that makes it worthwhile is that Ultraflex Thin Set that is spread over the existing facade before anything is done. It stops the bleeding, so to speak. But who knows how.
So essentially, what y'all, if I'm hearing this right, and I'm asking a question, this projection disappears. It would seem that it would have to. I'm sorry. That this area here, this projection, high and low.
Right, that's the only problem they said that we could not do is have the indentions in there now. Like he was saying, we might could get them to change the roof, like, you know, the bricks like a herringbone. But now we did not put in there, but we do have to get a flashing over the top to keep the water from going behind. So they'll actually fill it flat with the hardy board and then the bricks on top. Now what they had suggested to me is like a 2-inch screw. I'm not real comfortable with 2-inch screw, but he said it's going to last 200 years. We would rather sandwich it in like they had started anyway to both sides of the wall. And he said that would be a problem. They cost a little bit more if we were more comfortable with that.
Joel, I'd like to mention that if they cannot do that intermediate horizontal projection, at least turn the brick as like a soldier core, just so you read that. I can understand in the intermediate that you may not want to project it because it exposes the top edge of the brick.
Sure.
But up at the coping at the very top, they could project it just a little bit because the new metal coping would cover the top of everything.
I think it would be look nice with the little design, because they're saying that it's just an addition of probably an inch. This way, even with the other bricks, they're saying they're not gonna be able to make it look.
And I would think the installer would have the responsibility to prove to us, or to prove, not to us, to prove to the building department, this is going to work and this is how it needs to be done. And they would provide some, I think the building department would tell them, you gotta provide some evidence and you gotta provide some drawing that this is going to work and this is how we're going to do it. Appearance-wise, I'm all for it.
Joel, I kind of disagree with Mr. Smith in that I think the facade, I think it would look great, but we are inherently the Historic Preservation Commission. We are not the Historic Facade Commission. And I would like some reassurance from an outside source that yes, this is going to prevent further erosion from one of our downtown buildings. I recognize that it is a code enforcement issue. However, that is what we are called to do, is to ensure that the buildings that are within the downtown district are preserved for future generations. So I would feel more secure in voting today or a month from now, whenever, if we had all of that information.
Well, he's asked his number, if there's any problem, this used to be Jenkins brick, and they changed the act, and they do a lot of Montgomery historical stuff. They're telling me it's gonna last well over this building to fall in before it falls off.
But what I would recommend to this board before you, I think it is certainly up to this board what you do. What I would recommend is that you have some idea of the total picture of the facade before you make a decision on this. Certainly, Mr. Smith is talking about is not the way I would approach it. But y'all have the decision power. Y'all have the ability to make these. Y'all have to figure out how to interpret your own guidelines. And I think this is a good process. Y'all are doing very difficult work with a building like this. So at a minimum, though, I would make sure you understand the total picture, even just asking for a profile where you just look down the front of that building. What is that going to look like? The other thing I would just, if you're going to ask for the moon, I always find it's good to do that. But while you're making adjustments to this storefront, you might want to make some others that would improve it. Again, that glass transom above the doorway that's been covered up. Be interesting to know what's behind that and whether or not that could be restored. And finally, given that the structure's been painted before and that the existing brick that's not being dealt with needs a good sealant. Okay, the paint that's there, once the paint starts to decay, then you're going to have the same problem on the other brick. Then this structure needs to be painted again, in my opinion, just to keep the brick that's not being covered from being a problem later in the future.
We're talking about the whole front, middle part, right? It's going top to bottom.
Really, where they're talking
side
about
to side.
This changes in this, this area right through.
Right.
And so the rest of this, of course, is brick, and certainly the sides are brick. Those need to be repainted.
No, we're not gonna paint. We'll do this all the way down. You're going all the way to the side part, all the way. The whole surface.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, that's the reason I'm asking, suggesting that you understand this in total. Because at this point, I couldn't, if I had to write this up and say what you approved or what's been asked for, I couldn't. with any certainty other than my interpretation, and I'm probably wrong with what the applicant is asking for. So I think it would be, certainly any of these contractors could provide that. Just some kind of visual, since these are visual guidelines, y'all need to understand what's being proposed.
So we could, in essence, request a artist rendition from the profile and the front to be presented at our next meeting. And I would still, and I recognize that they do, it's Jenkins Brick, and they do a lot of historic preservation in surrounding areas. But if we could have something in writing that they state that this would protect the brick for years to come from corrosion, that would make me feel a lot better for a long term.
And again, it is to make sure that we don't get past this meeting and everybody says, well, I didn't think that's what I was approving. It's better to have that same document, same look, and everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. And I'm certainly interested to see if this is a workable solution. I think it might be. Again, like I said, it's not the way I would have started, but it could be a way that we solve a difficult building, because the decay of these bricks in the center section, that's going to be very difficult to overcome.
So that I understand, now we're talking about the danger of this thick brick wall that is decaying, going to sand or whatever. If the proper facade or whatever, if that is not done correctly, we will increase the time. I mean, it's going to be quicker that wall will decay and possibly fall.
Ms. Davis, I'm going to tell you that I'm not expert enough to know that. I'm going to tell you that right now you have that first layer of bricks that is not structurally able to hold anything, in my opinion. And so it's just what Mr. Smith's going back to. They're going to have to show the building department that they're securing. If you're putting up a hardy board base for this new installation, how are you securing that? What's going to keep that from just one day peeling off in total and becoming a bigger problem? But there's a way to do that. That installer can certainly do that. That brings everybody's confidence level up to 100%. That's not unknown. It's just unknown right now. So mainly, my concerns for this board is really what is the appearance when you're done. The installation can be regulated and dealt with.
Just one moment, Mr. Moffitt. Mr. Duke, I need to leave, so I'm going to pass on.
Basically let it be known that you're passing the chair.
I am passing the chair on to Vice Chair Gray Price.
Thank you. Yes, come ahead, Ms. Moffitt.
Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, I didn't hear a word he said. He talked very lightly, and I am unfamiliar with what the problem that he is saying we have. Can you reiterate that for me just briefly? Is he saying the structure is weak?
He's saying we need a statement from the company that's going to do the work that it will hold up like we think it needs to be.
A couple of things before I leave. Number one is the building is over 100 years old. The structure is sound. Those few bricks is on a piece of half-inch flat steel. And I've had that building almost 40 years, and just those few little bricks have fallen out. Over 4 years ago, he promised to find somebody that could fix it, and it hadn't been delivered. So I took it on my own to sandwich those bricks, not for structure, but to keep them from anything falling in on anybody else. And I had planned to stucco the front of it because of the lightness of the material. But after talking to you guys last time, this was introduced to me, and if you put cement board up there, are you familiar with the cement board that they use in floors? Are you familiar with it? All we have to do is bolt through it. Those bricks are that thick through there. And there's no weakness at all, even today, after 100+ years. Now, I'm in the aviation business, and I've been in the business for 42 years, and we deal with safety every day. I would not do anything to that building that would make it unsafe. But I get the feeling that Mr. Duke does not like me because of some past experiences. I'm hard-headed, and it cost me about $10,000 more to build that porch back there than it should have. And in my mind, I don't need an architect to design a porch. And I don't need an architect to design the front of that building. I'm you might say an engineer myself, but not on buildings and whatnot. I don't plan to do that, but it's rather simple. If it's sandwiched together, it's not going to fall as you thought you might fall. It hasn't fallen in 100 years, and it's not going to fall in the next 20 unless somebody knocks it down. So I think that's the ugliest building on the street. If Mr. Duke would like to furnish the money to fix it and put all new foundation and the roof when it caves in and all that stuff is moved, I'd be happy for him to do it. I'll get out of it. Now, I'm faced with an $8,000 to $15,000 faceplate on that, and I think that's rather high. All I wanted to do was beautify the building. Now, I was the first one on the street to fix up a building when they started this stuff with Wathall. So, after fooling with a porch and waiting on Mr. Duke for 3 or 4 years to tell me who could fix those bricks, it never happened because there's nobody can fix a sand brick. And we're not going to glue these bricks onto sand bricks. There'll be a cement wall between them, about a 1/2 inch thick. And I've used it in my house. I've used it on the floors, and it's pretty reliable.
Well, I understand. I was just explaining. You wanted to know what Mr. Duke said.
I could get an engineer of some kind, but what he writes on paper doesn't mean anything. It's got to be sound to suit me. So if you want that building fixed, it's got to have to be up to me to pay for it. And I'm going to look for the most economical way to do it. I've already been through this routine once before with the porch, and I was very unhappy with it. It cost me a lot more money than I wanted it to. Now, I got a lot of projects going, and I'm sorry that I'm hard-headed. I was blown up in Vietnam. I'm 100% disability. And I can find better things to do with my time than argue with Mr. Duke. But the structure is sound, and if we put the through bolts through it, all the weight, I had it figured down that each bolt would hold less than 5 pounds. And if we put this brick veneer on there, it'll look just exactly like this wall over here.
Okay, I think all Mr. Duke was saying is we would like, would the brick company, could they tell us, give us a statement saying it would be safe to do it the way they're planning on doing it? And then he wanted a visual picture of what it would.
There's not an engineer in this town that can guarantee that building will be stronger. It's already lasted 100 years. That's pretty strong, wouldn't you think?
Sort of strong.
Thank you, sir. If Mr. Duke is not satisfied with my performance, I can take the boards down and leave it like it is, and it'll still be here when I'm gone.
This letter from Buddy Hibbard from Acme Brick and Tile is Jenkins Brick. is Acme Tile. It's the same guys. So obviously they know what they're talking about. He says this thin brick system has been used countless times for just this type of project. One more sentence could have put it over the top. If he had just said, a 5-year warranty, a 10-year warranty, some kind of warranty item on here other than saying we've used the system a lot and it works pretty well. There's still, as far as us making a decision on whether or not we can approve this, like we said, I'm sure it'll look great. I'm sure it will look fine, but it still does not completely satisfy the commission's guidelines on masonry. For example, historic masonry should be retained and maintained. Historic masonry should remain visible and untreated. Exceptions are if bricks have lost their protective outer coating, in which case this has. In which case paint can be used for preservation, or if repairs have failed to stop water from getting into bricks, in which case water-repellent coatings might be used, like your thin set. Deteriorated or damaged masonry should be repaired and missing elements should be replaced. The materials used in repairs should replicate the masonry's historic appearance. You're doing most of that, and the problem is that thin brick is not something that's been used a lot here. I know he's used a lot, that Acme's used it a lot in different applications around here, around the region, but we're not familiar with it here. I think a little more assurance from Acme Brick may satisfy this commission.
I retired out of the military in Barksdale, and I moved back to this town. And my wife's mother was a seamstress, and she's a seamstress. And you can check this out. That sewing shop brought more business downtown than all other businesses combined. That's a fact. I mean, she knows grandmothers, mothers, and great-grandchildren of the same group of people around here.
Oh, right. I know it's been a great business.
Diagnosed with dementia, and she, we've had her to every doctor we can, and nobody can fix her either. But this building, I think, will be here longer than you and I together. And I'm sure if I have a hand in it, it'll be structurally sound, because I don't make things that's dangerous. And I am a flight instructor. I'm a pilot with over 35,000 hours. And one of my students flew that airplane. It went into the Hudson a week before. So I have a reputation, and I'm not going to bust it here on this building. So my choice is I'd like to fix it as sound construction I don't mind using a brick, but I'm not going to glue any brick onto sand. That just doesn't work.
No, I don't think that's what.
Sir?
I don't think that's what we're saying. I think.
Well, I'm trying to get across. This girl will probably inherit the building, because I'm 80 years old and I probably won't be here too much longer. But the fact remains that to move forward, you got to quit arguing about simple things. If it's cut and dried, that's fine. Now, a man just got killed, please, next to my hangar out there because he got in a hole. Maybe you heard about it. 10,000 pounds cement fell on him. You can do stupid things anywhere, but this is not necessarily stupid on anybody's part. I don't think Mr. Duke is a structural engineer at all. If he is, I'd like to see his license. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All I think is that we wanted to,
I talked to the man that gave us Buddy. He said that the bricks itself would be well over 100 years, that we'd have to get it from the installer. Okay. Buddy, I just called him, the one that gave us the estimate. He's saying that the bricks are going to last well over 100 years. He said any kind of warranties of how long it would stay up is going to be from the installer, which they use him all the time. He said he couldn't speak for him, but he's very good. It would last a long time. Now, I'm understanding this thin stuff or whatever you're talking about, they're going to actually seal that building off, okay? And then they're going to put the board. Now, they had said about 2-inch screw. Well, we're not going to have a 2. We're going to go all the way through. So he said we'll deal with that with the man. So that will be, you know. Now, the only other thing that we did not include on that list is a flashing to keep the water from going behind this, and that's where we cure that. So we'll have to do that at the same
Right.
time or shortly, you know, after they get the brick up. So we haven't even got that far yet.
Do you think they would make a statement to the safety of the project and then get a rendering so that we can see it? That's what Mr. Duke was really saying. I think everybody's agreement. I know it's a great business and it's been great for the city, and we want to work with you. It's just anyway. Thank you, Ms. Duck.
So if we get that before, can we proceed on? We'd like to have it ready for City Fest, and that's, you know, May. But they're saying that this man will come in after business hours, do his stuff, so it won't be interfering with any, you know,
Great.
thing on weekend or whatever he's got to do.
So what we really talking about is maybe a statement about the structure installation process and the safety, and then maybe a rendering of what it might look like.
Write that down. Can I write those down? Not like I don't have 5 million things to do. So basically, can we
Motion.
approve it based on you getting this within a day or two, or sometime? This is Easter weekend, you know, next week, so we can proceed on.
We could have a special meeting called. How long does it take, Ms. Duke? Sir?
6 days.
6 days after we get the information, we could.
Okay, if you can be clear as write down exactly what you want. Just gotta.
Well,
Because I will forget when I leave here. Okay.
okay. Well, we haven't had a motion yet, so I'm going to have to wait and see what the motion says.
I'm sorry. Is it too much to ask? We've had the contractors and all come in before. Is it too much to ask Mr. Hibbard to come and address us?
He is just the salesman for the brick company, so he can guarantee his bricks. But basically, he said that the man that's installing, that he would have to get in touch with him. Because
So would it be possible the installer could come address our questions?
if we have to, so whatever works.
Excuse me. Personally, I'm satisfied that the structure is sound. Back in the day, there was no brick veneer walls really built. All the brick walls was tied together. That facade above the storefront is probably either 8 or 12 inches thick. And I'm convinced that it's strong. Like I said, it's been there 100 years. And I think it's a simple matter of just the waterproofing and attaching the new brick. I think this could really look good, and especially if it's done in some pattern.
Yes.
Appreciate, not to prolong this much further. I'm with Mr. Smith. After the long discussion tonight, I am not in any way worried about structure. I think that can be satisfied. And I apologize for my crude drawing. Definitely apologize to the architect. But again, what we're looking at here is that, as you can see in profile, you have this kind of relief in this building. Okay, you have kind of a cornice at the top. You have these little, and this is, I'm just kind of showing you. If you look at the detail as you go home tonight, there are little darts up in the top, little corbelling in the brick, where they've created the detail in that building. And you've got the same detail here at basically where the beam is that goes across above the storefront. Now, this is a side view. If we could peel back the building next to it and look at it, this is what you would see, okay, on the front of the building. What I'm hearing tonight is different than what I heard at the last meeting, and I'm just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page, is that what they're talking about doing is covering this whole front. Anything that is brick now will be covered with this thin brick. My question is, will this detail remain? And I don't think it will. Okay, this is the character of the building, is what I'm saying. And are you moving towards removing the character of the building and basically creating a nice flat front like you've got on the Bank of Prattville, the Hancock building, or where McDowell Falk was done like that sometime in the past? Is that what you're going to end up with? Now, if this board is okay with that, that's perfectly fine. That is okay. You just need to make sure that you know what you're approving.
Joel, the existing brick up there is beyond repair, isn't it?
I would say only really this section in the center. The rest of it seems to be in pretty good shape. I don't see decay everywhere else.
But in the future, though, it's going to get worse. Is that correct? If it's left basically like it is. And I guess that's why I'm looking for a solution. If that brick's in such bad shape and can't be repaired, then us cover it with something that looks good and is approved by this committee and looks good for downtown Prattville, even with this new product.
Well, and I'm certainly all for that. I'm just trying, like I said, make sure everybody understands what you're approving. Because I would really hate for you to, if unless absolutely necessary, lose the unique detail of that building. That we have some of these buildings that have the metal cornices that are added to it. You have that detail that was common in the early 1900s. You have some of these buildings where the detail is in the brick. That's what makes it. It adds to the architectural appeal of the building. So. It is possible to come to the conclusion that this building is beyond saving that, and if that's the case, then maybe this is a way to do that. So, and I'm certainly not up here arguing with you. I'm just trying to make sure that y'all are aware of what you're approving. That's all, Mr. Chair.
How would you maintain the charm of this building and do what's necessary? Are you talking about just doing the middle rather than the whole thing? I mean, how would you do it?
Well, frankly, I'm not convinced that you couldn't come back in here and it is, in my opinion, possible to look at coming back and sealing this building up with some type of elastomeric coating where you accept that there is deformity in the brick. Okay, where the brick has already failed and falling out, if the elastomeric coating folks can say that they can come back in and apply that in such a way that it's not going, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. I was not until Mr. Musgrove wanted to put it on his building, and he only put it on a part of his building. But we were really afraid that it would look a lot like kind of, if you've seen these deck materials where they paint the deck and it's a really kind of a thick finish. Well, that's not what ended up here, but it is sealed up that brick on Mr. Musgrove's building. There might be some possibility in doing that. And certainly that would be a less expensive option for the property owner. We can look at that, and I mean, I'm not trying to bring it up here at the amen last minute, but that is certainly a way to look at preserving the detail of the building. But again, we go back to this. I think it's important that you, not to say where we're headed is wrong, but what will be the profile of that building when you're done? You just need a simple rendering. The contractor should be able to do that. And if that's part of what you asked for, then
we just
if they're building on Hardybacker, then that profile should be able to be maintained.
I would think so. You might be able to.
He would know how to do that, I would think, the contractor.
But again, the change that's been brought up this evening is that you're talking about the whole building, not just that middle. Because I have to tell you, that's where I thought we were talking about when we got here today. Okay, so again, it's always important that you work on a decision till you understand. We're doing this on a few other boards where we're trying to get to the point where everybody on the board understands exactly what they're voting on. And
That clarifies for me.
Yeah, if we had a drawing of the facade showing the detail.
yeah.
And showing some shadow lines and showing some relief,
Donna,
it could look
are you listening?
If we
Instead of just having the whole thing flat, want to have a little more character, I think, is like it was.
Sir, when I bought that building, it had pieces of aluminum down the side and across the front. And somewhere it disappeared. I won't say who got it because I don't know. But those bricks have there's been very little deterioration. The deterioration, from what I understand, started under a sign that was up there. And all I want to do is cover it up or fill it up, cover it up, and put something on the front. That's not structure. We had a long discussion, and he said I could do anything except structure, and I'm not fooling with any structure. So I think all of this ought to be rethought. I'll be happy to get an engineer to say that it's sound, but we're holding up production.
Okay, I think to answer your question, from what I'm understanding, it's gonna have to be flat for it to be sound and to be able to secure the front. However, I liked his suggestion, which I thought that's what you'd said, maybe do a herringbone or some kind of different to maybe show where it was.
Yes, if this group just had a drawing showing maybe some detail on how the brick's going up there, whoever does the detail, them be conscious that this is downtown Prattville and give us something that's turning the brick different ways, projecting brick. Give us something that we can look at as a group and says, yes, this looks good. We'll approve this.
And it maintains our historic, the
Well, I was under the understanding they were gonna just do it straight down like the regular brick. However, I mean, I've been in there 30 years and somebody brought it to my attention the other day that it was indented. You know, white brick looks the same, but,
Yeah, that's, excuse me.
you can paint this stuff on a painted surface like they painted on the bricks. Otherwise, they painted the building he was talking about, Mr. Musgrove building. They painted over brick and then the rest of it had to be painted. However, a solution like you'd said, it may be that we could do some kind of different pattern. I'll have to talk to the installer and then maybe when I talk to him, he can draw us up something that would look feasible, to have that indented look, you know what I mean? Or something that's different. Is that would be feasible? I mean, okay, I already got in his pocketbook, drive this one, okay? I gotta have an air conditioner on the floor next.
The detail's not going to really, the detail's not going to cost you more money. The detail is not going to cost you more money because you got the same quantity. It's just how you use it. And if this group, I think, could get a drawing showing how that detail is done, something we can look at.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from now that you look at it, but I mean, I've never noticed it. Been in there for 30 years. You know,
I think they would be able to do that and with no problem.
right. But as far as I asked about the indention, it will not work because it's got whatever they're going to do to adhere the bricks to be waterproof and weathered. You know, they're going to seal it up and it's going to be smooth, so the board will go over that surface, so it all have to be flat. You know, and then we've agreed to go all the way to the bottom instead of having painted some, and you know. And if you look around it, I think it's really going to enhance because we picked that is an older looking brick.
The brick that's there now already has projections, and if they put this board, if they adhere to those projections, then the brick's going to have the same projections, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I understand what you're talking about, but the bricks in some areas are deteriorated, so even if you took them off and started over, which you see you can't do, it's going to have to be a surface, and they're saying that the smaller bricks would not work to come out because you won't, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't think they cut the bricks different sizes. It's all one size.
probably the installer wants to take the easy way out and just make it flat all the way. And I'm saying this group, I don't think it's going to approve a flat brick from top to bottom without any kind of detail.
My understanding is gonna be this thick, the hardy board and the bricks. And if you bring an indention out, I don't believe that the double bricks will stick, is what he's telling me. And there's no way to raise it up and make the brick secure is maybe what I'm trying to say. You know, for the durability and the stability of them, it needs to be straight. And a bigger brick will take the rest of the face off, that's what I'm understanding.
Could the backing be thicker?
They make special shapes in brick. If this brick sticks out past the brick that's up here, they make little water table pieces that you can put up here so the water doesn't go behind here. There's ways to do it to get detail.
Well, he suggested go with a flat surface and then the flashing on top of it. However, I was understanding a minute ago, you said maybe change the pattern to reflect what was there. Like I said, I've been in the 30 years. I've not noticed it in 30 years, but I mean, I agree with you. Somebody pulled it to my attention and yes, I notice it now. So could we not get a drawing with some the different ways he could put the bricks to make it reflect and look that way? I thought that was what I understood you to say. That's a good idea. I would, I think he would go with that.
Okay.
So just get this information and some different patterns that we might can look at.
We have to make.
Do we have a motion from the commission?
I'll make a motion that we table this until we can get a proper rendering done, showing reliefs and profile of the building, at which time we can call a special call meeting to get them on their way. And a statement from the installer about the integrity of the bricks and the length of the warranty lifespan of the bricks. And if he could be here at the special call meeting, that'd be even more helpful.
And may I make a friendly amendment to that, and that is to maintain the historical significance?
Okay, it's been a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Signify aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item is tabled, and we're going to talk about calling a special call meeting when you get that information to us, to Mr. Duke. Huh? No. Well, hold on a minute. Is there a motion to adjourn? Wait.
Just so they're clear on that, they've turned in an application for a sign, and y'all let us deal with that. Signs is a administrative matter, so we've got to address their sign request on the other building. So, but y'all don't have to do it. But they had to turn in an application, so I think they believe that it was on the agenda today. It's not. So,
Oh.
I got it on the deadline, and I got my deadline snapped.
You did?
I did.
And I'll be talking to you about that one tomorrow, if that's okay. They don't have to approve that.
Okay. They might like to know what it looks like.
Be glad to let y'all, but
Okay.
it doesn't have to come before the board.
Oh, okay. It doesn't have to go before. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
We're adjourned.